$453 after the bus ticket, after the sandwich, after the A train. That is the number your entire plan is built on. In Columbus, Ohio, $453 is a slow weekend. In New York City, it is a countdown. You bought the ticket on a Tuesday because flights are for people with more than $500 and a plan. You had neither. Port Authority Bus Terminal at 6 a.m. is the first thing New York shows you. It shows you everything at once. Enormous, fluorescent, smelling like fast food and human endurance. There are pigeons inside the building. Not outside, inside, walking around like they pay rent. A man near the exit is having a full conversation with a trash can. A family of 6 is asleep on plastic chairs with the practiced efficiency of people who have done this before. You stand in the middle of all of it with your duffel bag and your cracked phone, and you realize, for the first time, that the mythology and the place are two entirely different things that happen to share a name. You booked a hostel in Bushwick, $45 a night. Check in at 3 p.m. It is currently 6 a.m. You have 9 hours before you can lie down and $453, which, in New York City, actually is not money. It is the suggestion of money, the memory of money, what money looks like right before it becomes something else. The subway costs $2.90. You stand on the platform and watch the train come out of the dark and feel something crack open in your chest. Terror or excitement? You decide it's excitement because terror gets you nothing and excitement at least gets you moving. A bodega on the corner has a cat in the window next to a sign that says, "We have everything." You go inside and buy a bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll for $4. It is the best thing you have eaten in weeks. Not because it's extraordinary, but because you're eating it standing on a sidewalk in Brooklyn at 7 a.m. while the city wakes up around you. And, for one specific moment, it feels exactly like the mythology. Then you do the math. $446.10. 9 nights in the hostel. After that, income or home. The home means telling your father that New York, because why not, was not a complete plan. And watching him try not to say, "I told you so," and failing. Home is not an option. The mattress is the thickness of a good intention. You give yourself 5 minutes to feel the full weight of what you have done. Then you open your laptop and start applying. 14 applications in 3 hours. Junior designer, freelance illustrator. The bar in Williamsburg that needs someone to run their Instagram. Each cover letter says you just moved to New York and you're hungry for opportunity, which is both a professional statement and a literal description of your situation. His name is Marcus, Atlanta. Been in New York 6 months trying to make music work. He works days at a warehouse in the Bronx for $17 an hour and plays open mics at night in bars that pay an exposure. He talks about exposure with the specific bitterness of someone who has learned exactly what it costs. Marcus has been at the hostel for 6 months, longer than a hostel is designed to be used. He knows this. He talks about it with the dark humor of someone who has made peace with a situation by learning to narrate it well. You recognize this immediately. You are already doing the same thing. Marcus knows which gallery openings have free drinks if you look like you belong. You go on Thursday. The art on the walls is made by people from Ohio, from Atlanta, from everywhere that isn't here. People who showed up with $453 and made something out of the making. There is a photograph of the subway at 3 a.m., empty car. One figure at the far end. Something about it makes your throat tighten in a way you don't entirely understand. Not sadness, recognition. The image looks like how New York feels when you're in it without a net. Her name is Diana. They're in Michigan, 2 years in, works production design during the day, shoots at night. She pays $800 a month for a room in Ridgewood that she splits with two roommates. She says it with the tone of someone reporting a war injury. You show her your portfolio on your cracked phone. She looks at it carefully. She says, "You're good." And in New York, good is a starting point, not a destination. She gives you a name. A studio in Dumbo that's looking for a design assistant? Tell them Diana sent you. In this city, that's a form of currency that doesn't show up in your bank account, but spends just as real. Day 5, you are down to $280. The warehouse job calls back. $17 an hour. Overnight shifts. The Bronx? You take it. You take it the same way you ate the sandwich on the first morning. Without hesitation, without pride, because hunger is a more honest advisor than ambition when the math is this close. 10 hours of walking concrete floors, scanning barcodes on boxes containing things people ordered at midnight that they don't need. Your feet hurt by hour 3. By hour 7, you are operating on the specific autopilot of someone whose body is present and whose mind has completely vacated the premises. You think about your portfolio. You think about Diana saying, "Good is a starting point." You scan boxes and the hours pass the way hours pass when you're paid to be there, but not to think. First shift after taxes, $170. It is the most important $170 you have ever held. It extends your runway. It buys you more time. Time is the only thing New York actually sells. And it sells it expensively. The warehouse is how you buy it. You email the studio Diana mentioned. They respond in 2 days, not an interview, a portfolio review, which means they're curious but not committed, which is the professional version of the city itself. You prepare for 3 days. You update every project. You think about what story your 12 pieces tell, and whether it's the story you actually want to be telling. The review is in Dumbo with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Manhattan Bridge. James, the creative director, looks at your work for 11 minutes without saying anything. Then he asks 3 questions. Why design? Why New York? What do you want to make? You answer all 3 honestly, because performing confidence you don't have reads as exactly what it is. And honesty about where you are is more interesting than pretending to be further along. He says he'll be in touch. Part-time, $22 an hour, 20 hours a week. It is not enough to live on in New York, which means you keep the warehouse at night and do the studio during the day, and sleep somewhere in the middle in a bottom bunk in Bushwick, while Marcus practices guitar quietly across from you at midnight. Month 2, a room in Ridgewood, 3 roommates, 1 bathroom, a kitchen the size of a hallway, $750 a month. You move out on a Sunday. Marcus shakes your hand. He says, "Don't forget us little people," then laughs the way people laugh when something is both a joke and not a joke. You tell him you'll be at the open mic on Thursday. You are. Month 4. The studio goes full time, $38,000 a year. In Ohio, that's reasonable. In New York, it's a number you make work. I've rice and beans 4 nights a week, walking instead of the subway when it's under 30 minutes, never buying anything that isn't necessary or free. You buy a desk lamp at IKEA for $12 and put it in your corner of the Ridgewood room. It makes the corner feel like somewhere a person who is building something would work. Diana introduces you to a brand in Brooklyn that needs a logo. They pay $1,200. You spend a weekend on it. The founder posts it. 3 people ask who did the design. She gives them your contact. 1 becomes a client, then another. The freelance money starts to look less like survival and more like something else. Not comfort, not yet, but direction. The feeling that the math might actually go somewhere instead of just holding you in place. Month 12. You take the A train home from the studio on a Thursday in December. The car is crowded. A man across from you is asleep holding a portfolio case. A woman next to him is reading a script. A kid in the corner is drawing in a notebook with focused intensity. Everyone in this car came from somewhere else with a bag and a number and a reason that sounded better at 2 a.m. than it did crossing some state border. Everyone in this car is building something the city has not agreed to support yet. Everyone in this car is doing the math. You are not the person who got off the Greyhound at Port Authority at 6 a.m. with $453 and a note that said, New York, because why not? You are also not the person you imagined you'd be by now. The person you are is harder to describe than either of those. More tired, more specific, then more clear about what you're building, more honest about how long it takes, less interested in the mythology, more interested in the actual work. Marcus got a publishing deal for an EP small label, not big money, but real. He texted you a photo of his new room, a real bed in it, and wrote, "First real bed in 18 months. You sent back a single period, because some things don't need more words than that. Diana's photograph, the empty subway car, got picked up by a magazine, full page. She texted at midnight when it posted. You were awake, because you're always awake at midnight now. You looked at it on your phone and felt the same throat tightening as the first time. Recognition. The image still looks like how New York feels when you're in it without a net. But you've been without a net for 12 months and you haven't fallen. Or maybe you fell and landed somewhere you couldn't have planned. And the landing was the point. The train goes underground and the lights flicker the way they always do. For a moment, the car is half dark. Then it isn't. New York doesn't care that you made it this far. It doesn't mark the day. It doesn't acknowledge the distance between the bus terminal at 6 a.m. and the studio in Dumbo. The city just keeps moving, which is the most honest thing it does. It moves, and it asks you every single day if you're going to move with it. So far, you have said yes. So far, that has been enough. So far, if you moved somewhere alone with less than you needed and made it work anyway, drop a comment. Tell me the city. Tell me the number you showed up with. Subscribe. New life drops next week.